What you focus on determines how you feel, how you think, and ultimately how you live. Every moment of your life is being shaped by where your attention goes. If your focus is on what you lack, you will feel weak. If your focus is on what you fear, you will feel stuck. But the instant you shift your focus to what you can control, what you can learn, and what you can build, your emotional state changes. Your brain does not respond to reality as much as it responds to what you consistently pay attention to. Two people can face the same situation and walk away with completely different experiences, not because the situation changed, but because their focus did. Most people let their focus drift to problems, mistakes, and comparisons. They replay the past and worry about the future, and then they wonder why they feel exhausted and unmotivated. But focus is not something that just happens to you. It is something you train. When you consciously decide what deserves your attention, you reclaim your power, you stop reacting and start directing. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what can I do with this? That single shift turns frustration into fuel. Your emotions follow your focus like a shadow. If you focus on pain, you will feel pain more deeply. If you focus on progress, even small progress, you will feel hope. This is why two people with the same results can feel completely different about their lives. One focuses on how far they still have to go and feels defeated. The other focuses on how far they have come and feels driven. The difference is not talent or luck. The difference is attention. Focus also shapes your actions. When you focus on excuses, you create more reasons to quit. When you focus on solutions, you create movement. The mind is always trying to answer the questions you ask it. If you keep asking, why am I not good enough? Your mind will give you proof. If you ask, how can I get better? Your mind will search for strategies. Your questions become your direction, and your direction becomes your destiny. This is why mastering focus is mastering your life. You cannot always control what happens outside you, but you can control what you dwell on inside. When you focus on growth, you start seeing challenges as training. When you focus on purpose, setbacks lose their power to break you. When you focus on what matters most, distractions begin to fade. Over time, this creates a new identity. You are no longer the person who reacts emotionally to everything. You become the person who chooses meaning and direction. The moment you decide to focus on what builds you instead of what drains you, everything changes. Your energy rises, your confidence strengthens. Your discipline becomes easier because your mind knows where it is going. Focus is not just a mental skill, it is a life skill. Train it and you train your emotions. Direct it and you direct your future. What you focus on is not just what you see, it is who you become. Most people spend their lives focusing on what is wrong instead of what is possible. They wake up thinking about what they don't have, what didn't work yesterday, and what might go wrong tomorrow. Their attention is locked onto problems, and over time, those problems begin to feel bigger than they really are. When you constantly look at obstacles, your mind starts to believe that obstacles are all that exist. You stop seeing options, you stop seeing chances, and you stop seeing your own strength. This is not because opportunity disappeared, but because your focus trained your eyes to search for trouble instead of potential. The mind is like a magnet. Whatever you consistently think about, you attract more of. If you keep telling yourself how hard life is, you will find more proof of struggle. If you keep telling yourself that nothing ever works out, you will notice every small failure and ignore every small victory. This is how people get trapped in emotional patterns without realizing it. They don't fail because they are incapable. They fail because their focus keeps them in survival mode. They are so busy managing problems that they forget to build possibilities. When you shift your attention from what is broken to what can be built, everything begins to change. Problems do not disappear, but they lose their power over you. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, how can I use this? That question alone transforms stress into strategy. It turns confusion into curiosity. It trains your brain to look for answers instead of excuses. And the more you practice this shift, the stronger it becomes. Possibility-focused people live differently. They still face setbacks, but they do not live inside them. They see challenges as signals to grow, not reasons to quit. While others are busy complaining about the road, they are busy learning how to walk it better. This is not blind optimism. This is disciplined thinking. It is the choice to invest your mental energy in outcomes instead of obstacles. Every breakthrough in your life begins with a change in what you concentrate on. The moment you start feeding your fear and start feeding your vision, your emotional state rises. You feel more alive because your mind is no longer trapped in defense. It is in creation. You stop measuring your life by what went wrong and start measuring it by what is still possible. If you want different results, you must focus on different things, not because problems don't matter, but because solutions matter more. Your future is not shaped by the size of your problems. It is shaped by the direction of your focus. When you train yourself to look for growth instead of damage, opportunity instead of limitation, and progress instead of pain, you begin to live from power instead of pressure. And that shift is what separates those who feel stuck from those who feel unstoppable. Your inner dialogue is the voice that shapes your reality long before the world ever responds to you. The words you repeat to yourself every day become the blueprint for your identity. If you constantly tell yourself that you are not ready, not strong enough, or not smart enough, your mind will treat those thoughts as instructions. It will look for evidence to support them, and slowly you will begin to live in alignment with those beliefs. This is not because they are true, but because they are familiar. The brain trusts what it hears most often, even when it is destructive. Most people do not realize how much of their life is being guided by unconscious self-talk. They think their limits come from circumstances, from other people, or from bad luck. But the real boundary is often the story they tell themselves about who they are and what they can handle. When you say, "I always fail," you are not describing reality, you are programming it. When you say, "This is too hard for me," you are not predicting the future, you are shrinking your present. The powerful shift happens when you begin to question that voice instead of obeying it. Just because a thought appears does not mean it deserves your loyalty. You can interrupt it, you can challenge it, you can replace it. When your inner dialogue moves from "I can't" to "I'm learning," your identity changes from weak to growing. When it moves from "I'm stuck" to "I'm in transition," your emotional state changes from hopeless to determined. These are not small changes. They are the foundation of transformation. Your words to yourself define your standards. They decide what you tolerate and what you fight for. If your inner voice accepts excuses, your behavior will follow. If your inner voice demands progress, your actions will rise to meet it. This is why two people with the same ability can produce completely different results. One is constantly criticizing and doubting themselves. The other is coaching themselves forward. One tears down their confidence before the world ever gets a chance. The other builds belief even when the world is uncertain. Identity is not fixed. It is built through repetition. Every time you choose to speak to yourself with strength instead of weakness, you lay a new brick in that identity. Over time, that voice becomes your emotional home. It becomes the place you return to when things go wrong. And if that place is supportive instead of hostile, you recover faster, adapt quicker, and grow stronger. When you change your inner dialogue, you do not just change how you feel. You change what you attempt. You change what you persist through. You change what you believe is possible for your life. The world may still challenge you, but now you meet it with a different mind. And a different mind creates a different destiny. Pain is one of the most misunderstood forces in human life. Most people see it as something to avoid, something to fear, something that means something has gone wrong. But pain is not the enemy. Meaning is. The way you interpret pain decides whether it weakens you or strengthens you. Two people can go through the same loss, the same failure, the same rejection, and one becomes bitter while the other becomes better. The event is the same. The meaning they give it is different. When pain shows up, the mind immediately asks, "Why is this happening to me?" If the answer becomes, "Because I'm unlucky," or "Because I'm not enough," then pain turns into poison. It drains confidence and builds walls around the heart. But if the answer becomes, "This is shaping me," or "This is training me," pain transforms into fuel. It becomes a signal to grow stronger, wiser, and more aware. The experience does not disappear, but its role in your life changes. Every challenge carries a lesson, and every wound carries information. Pain tells you where to pay attention. It shows you what matters. It reveals what needs to change. When you resist pain, you stay stuck in it. When you listen to it, you learn from it. The strongest people are not those who avoided suffering. They are the ones who decided to use it. They refuse to let their worst moments define them as victims. They turn them into reasons to rise. Think about how many times pain has already shaped you. It has forced you to mature. It has made you careful where you were careless. It has taught you empathy where you were once blind. It has pushed you to search for answers you would never have looked for in comfort. Comfort rarely creates growth. Pain demands it. And when you change the meaning of pain from punishment to preparation, your entire relationship with life shifts. This does not mean pretending everything is fine. It means choosing what the experience stands for. Instead of saying, "This broke me," you say, "This built me." Instead of saying, "I lost everything," you say, "I learned what really matters." Instead of saying, "I failed," you say, "I trained." These are not empty words. They are commands to the nervous system. They tell your mind how to store the memory, as weakness or as wisdom. When pain becomes power, you stop running from difficulty and start walking through with purpose. You no longer measure your life by how little you suffer, but by how deeply you grow. The past stops being a prison and starts becoming a source of strength. Your scars become proof of survival, not symbols of defeat. The moment you decide that pain is not here to destroy you, but to develop you, you take back control. You become the one who assigns meaning. And meaning is what turns struggle into strength, wounds into wisdom, and pressure into progress. Discipline does not come from willpower alone. It is born from vision. When you clearly know what you want and why you want it, your behavior begins to change naturally. Most people think discipline means forcing yourself to do things you hate. In reality, true discipline is alignment. It is when your daily actions match the future you desire. Without a personal vision, effort feels like punishment. With a personal vision, effort feels like progress. A person without vision wakes up reacting to life. They follow moods, distractions, and circumstances. One day they feel motivated, the next day they feel tired, and their actions change with their emotions. But a person with vision wakes up with direction. Even when motivation is low, their purpose is still high. They know what they are building, and that knowledge gives structure to their choices. They are not disciplined because they are strong. They are disciplined because they are clear. When your vision is vague, your discipline will be weak. If your goal is only to be successful or be happy, your mind has nothing specific to commit to. But when your vision becomes personal and detailed, your brain starts organizing your behavior around it. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" and start asking, "Does this move me closer to what I want?" That shift turns discipline from a fight into a filter. It helps you decide what to do and what to avoid. Discipline is not about doing everything. It is about doing what matters. A clear vision tells you what matters. It tells you which habits to build and which habits to break. It tells you what to say yes to and what to walk away from. Without vision, you waste energy on things that do not serve you. With vision, your energy becomes focused. Focus creates consistency, and consistency creates results. There will be days when you do not feel inspired. That is normal. Feelings change. Vision does not. When you remind yourself of the future you are working toward, you give your nervous system a reason to move. You are no longer just exercising, studying, or working hard for today. You are training for a version of yourself that does not exist yet, and that future identity pulls you forward when comfort tries to pull you back. This is how discipline becomes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who tries. You start seeing yourself as someone who does. Not because life is easy, but because your purpose is stronger than your excuses. Each small disciplined action becomes a vote for the person you want to become. Over time, those votes add up. What once felt difficult becomes natural. What once required effort becomes habit. A clear personal vision is not just a dream. It is a compass. It keeps you moving when the path is unclear. It keeps you steady when emotions are loud. And it turns discipline from a temporary struggle into a permanent lifestyle. When you know where you are going, you do not need to be pushed. You pull yourself forward. Emotional control is not about pretending everything is fine or pushing feelings away. It is about choosing where your attention goes when emotions rise. Most people believe their emotions control them, but in reality, emotions follow focus. When something goes wrong, the mind immediately locks onto the problem, the insult, the loss, or the fear. The longer you stare at it, the stronger the feeling becomes. Anger grows because you keep replaying the story. Anxiety grows because you keep imagining the worst outcome. Sadness grows because you keep revisiting what is missing. The emotion is not increasing on its own. Your attention is feeding it. Avoiding reality does not create emotional strength. Ignoring problems only stores them deeper in the system. True emotional control comes from directing your focus to a better question, a better meaning, and a better action. Instead of asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" you ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Instead of focusing on what you lost, you focus on what you can still build. This does not remove the emotion instantly, but it changes its direction. It turns chaos into clarity. When you focus on what you cannot control, you feel powerless. When you focus on what you can control, you feel capable. You may not be able to control other people's behavior, the past, or sudden events, but you can control what you dwell on. You can choose whether your mind camps in blame or moves towards solutions. That choice is the difference between emotional reaction and emotional mastery. Strong people are not emotionless. They simply do not let emotion decide their direction. They feel fear and still move forward. They feel frustration and still think clearly. They feel sadness and still search for meaning. They do not deny the feeling, but they do not worship it either. They acknowledge it and then guide it. They change their posture, their breathing, their inner language, and most importantly, their focus. And when focus shifts, the emotional state follows. This is why attention is power. Whatever you hold in your mind long enough becomes your emotional home. If your focus is always on danger, your home becomes anxiety. If your focus is always on injustice, your home becomes anger. But if your focus is on growth, your home becomes strength. If your focus is on purpose, your home becomes stability. You cannot always stop emotions from arriving, but you can decide how long they stay. Emotional control is built through practice. Each time you interrupt a negative spiral and redirect your mind toward progress, you train your nervous system. Over time, you recover faster, you adapt quicker. You stop being hijacked by every setback. Life still challenges you, but it no longer owns you. When you learn to direct your attention instead of running from reality, you gain emotional freedom. You stop being a prisoner of moods and become a leader of your inner world. And when you lead your inner world, your outer world begins to follow. Growth begins the moment comparison ends and self-mastery starts. Most people measure their lives by looking sideways instead of looking inward. They watch what others have, how fast others move, and how far others seem to be ahead. In doing so, they give their power away. Comparison creates the illusion that success is only one path and one timeline. It turns life into a race instead of a journey. And in that race, there will always be someone faster, richer, or louder. When your standards come from other people, your confidence will always be unstable. Comparison distracts you from the only competition that truly matters, the one with who you were yesterday. It shifts your focus from progress to position. You stop asking, am I better than before? And start asking, am I better than them? That question breeds insecurity and impatience. It makes you feel behind even when you are growing. It makes you feel weak even when you are improving. You begin to doubt your pace instead of trusting your process. Self-mastery is the opposite of comparison. It is the decision to study yourself instead of judging others. It means learning how your mind works, how your emotions react, and how your habits shape your days. Instead of being obsessed with what someone else is doing, you become committed to what you are becoming. You ask better questions. You ask, what do I need to work on? What habit do I need to strengthen? What belief is holding me back? These questions build character instead of envy. When self-mastery begins, growth becomes personal. You stop copying and start creating. You stop chasing and start building. You no longer need validation from outside because your standard comes from inside. You measure your success by your discipline, your consistency, and your courage. Even small wins feel powerful because they belong to you. They are earned, not borrowed. This shift also brings peace. Comparison keeps the nervous system in a constant state of pressure. There is always someone to catch up to, always someone to compete with. Self-mastery removes that noise. It brings clarity. You know what you are working on and why. You know your weaknesses and you face them instead of hiding them. You know your strengths and you train them instead of wasting them. True growth is quiet. It happens when no one is watching. It happens when you choose improvement over approval. When you replace comparison with self-mastery, you stop trying to look successful and start trying to become capable. And capability lasts longer than image. It builds confidence that does not depend on applause. The moment you stop comparing, you recover energy. That energy goes into learning, practicing, and evolving. Your life stops being a reaction to others and becomes an expression of who you are becoming. That is when growth becomes unstoppable. Not because the world changed, but because your focus did. Consistent self-focus creates unstoppable momentum because it turns effort into identity. When you repeatedly invest attention in your own growth, your mind starts to expect progress. You stop living in random bursts of motivation and begin moving with direction. At first, the change feels small. A better decision here, a stronger habit there, but consistency compounds. What you do daily shapes what you believe, and what you believe shapes what you attempt. Momentum is not built in dramatic moments. It is built in ordinary ones when no one is watching and nothing exciting is happening. Most people wait for motivation to act, but self-focused people act to create motivation. They do not ask how they feel, they ask what needs to be done. Each action becomes proof that they are capable, and that proof builds confidence, confidence builds courage, courage builds action. This is how momentum forms, not as a sudden explosion, but as a steady current that becomes harder and harder to stop. When you focus on yourself instead of distractions, you reduce emotional noise. You are no longer pulled in every direction by opinions, trends, or comparisons. Your energy stops leaking into things you cannot control and starts flowing into things you can. You begin to see patterns in your behavior. You notice what strengthens you and what weakens you. That awareness gives you power. Power to adjust, power to refine, power to stay on course. Momentum also changes how setbacks feel. When your life is built on consistent effort, failure does not mean the end. It becomes part of the rhythm. You fall, but the motion forward continues. You learn, adapt, and move again. Instead of stopping completely, you slow down and then rebuild speed. This is why consistent self-focus creates stability. You are not relying on emotion to carry you, you are relying on habit. Over time, discipline becomes natural. You no longer fight yourself to improve. Improvement becomes your normal state. You expect growth the way you once expected excuses. This does not make life easy, but it makes you stronger, and strength changes how you experience difficulty. Challenges no longer feel like threats. They feel like tests you are prepared for. Unstoppable momentum is not about perfection, it is about direction. As long as your focus remains on becoming better than before, movement continues. Even small steps create psychological speed. You begin to trust yourself because you see yourself showing up. That trust becomes the foundation of confidence. You are no longer guessing who you are proving it through action. When self-focus is consistent, the future stops feeling uncertain. Not because you know exactly what will happen, but because you know who you are becoming. And a person who is becoming stronger, wiser, and more disciplined is not afraid of what is ahead. Momentum turns fear into energy and doubt into determination. It carries you forward even when conditions are difficult, and once momentum is built, stopping feels harder than continuing. That is the power of consistent self-focus. Your life is the sum of where you place your attention. Every choice, every habit, every emotion flows from the focus you cultivate. When you turn your focus inward, you gain clarity, power, and purpose. You stop living by comparison, distraction, or fear, and you start living by design. Self-focus is not selfish, it is strategic. It allows you to see what matters, strengthen what works, and change what doesn't. Remember, growth does not come from avoiding challenges, it comes from mastering yourself despite them. Pain, setbacks, and uncertainty are not enemies. They are signals, teachers, and catalysts. When you assign meaning to your experiences, when you take responsibility for your attention, you transform every obstacle into fuel. Your inner dialogue, your habits, your vision, and your emotional control all compound into unstoppable momentum. The truth is simple: no one can focus for you. No one can give you the clarity, the discipline, or the energy that comes from turning your attention inward. The moment you commit to yourself, to your growth, to your future, everything begins to change. You do not wait for opportunity. You create it. You do not wait for courage. You act with it. You do not wait for motivation. You build it one decision at a time, every single day. Focus changes everything because it changes you. And when you change, the world changes around you. Your vision becomes sharper, your energy becomes higher, and your potential becomes limitless. Today is the moment to stop drifting and start directing. Today is the moment to focus on yourself, not as a final destination, but as the unstoppable force that will carry you to everything you are capable of becoming.